And welcome to the Steelers Depot Monday live stream here on, of course, this Monday, this Victory Monday for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they are fresh off a 24-16 win over the Carolina Panthers to move to 6-8 on the year. And like the title of this stream says, still remaining alive in that playoff hunt. Still a long ways to go, but still alive and kicking. As always, Dave Bryan is here with me. Dave, how you doing?
Doing good. Everybody hear me okay? Do an audio check right
Yep.
up front here.
We'll do our famous Steelers Depot audio tests. Everything should sound okay. If I sound weird, if Dave sounds weird, let us know, chat. And if we're good to go, then we have a lot of questions already in the chat to get to. But I want to check the audio before we start answering them.
You got your long johns ready for this weekend, Alex?
It's good. Yeah. What are they saying for Sunday?
Like 8 degrees or something like that?
And that's not even the wind chill. That's just the regular temperature.
That's enough right there.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen out there in Vegas. I know it gets colder in Vegas than people think, but not 8 degrees.
No, and you will not find me outdoors in anything that gets that cold. That's for sure.
Ditto. All right, audio sounds good. So as always, Dave and I are here till 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can send us questions about the Steelers, current, future, whatever is on your mind. If you want to have a guarantee of your question being asked and answered, feels like we might have a larger chat here tonight than usual. You can send us a super chat, and you will move to the front of the line, and your question will be answered before Dave and I are done. No obligation to do so, but we appreciate any and all super chats. So we'll start things off with David Kapoor, who says, does anyone know what Deontay said to get called for taunting? Seems like guys talk trash all the time. What makes it crossing the line? Dave, I know the NFL has cracked down on this over the last 2 years, and we don't know exactly what Deontay said, but basically, if you're showing up a player at his face, if you're doing it in his line of sight, it's gonna be a penalty. That's basically the way the NFL's calling it these days.
Yeah, it looked like a TV replay. I mean, he was right on top of him and saying something like what, or it's hard to know for sure. It's more action and look of, I guess, deliberate, trying to show him up, as you said. So I don't know exactly what he said, but man, it was a big penalty that fortunately they were able to overcome, because had they not, it would be even more, even a bigger discussion today than it already is. And, thankfully for him, Marcus Allen said, hold my beer later in the game there. So, yeah, you hate to see it, on the heels of all that this team has gone through over the years. The whole, Chase Claypool pointing at pointing first down late in the Vikings game last season. And this kind of, just make the catch and go back to the huddle,
Yeah, that's what you want to see. Basically, my interpretation is if you're going to celebrate in a player's face, in an opponent's face, or jaw at him, you're running a risk of a taunting penalty. They'd certainly crack down on that. Now, luckily for both Deontay Johnson and Marcus Allen, the Patriots receiver Jacoby Myers said, hold my clam chowder, and had that crazy play there that makes all this forgotten, at least from the NFL perspective. Of course, Steelers fans not going to forget what Johnson and Allen especially did. Have a very generous $20 super chat from our friend Double H8 says, happy holidays, a gift for Trevor Kozora and Mrs. Kozora circa 2024. There's a lot I like in that, and a lot I don't like in that statement there from Double H8. So I'm just trying to get through the Raiders game is kind of where I'm at, but appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, Lumberzack94. Hey, fellas, what would you guys pick as the single biggest need for the team going into the offseason where things stand right now? With that choice, if you had your way, who would you want, draft or free agent? Man, that's a big picture question. I know
the answer is yes.
No, you gotta answer the question. If you had to pick one thing,
pick position wise.
Single biggest need. Yeah, take it as position, and would you want that addressed in the draft or free agency? Is my interpretation of the question.
Man, right now, I don't. You look at Tyson Alualu going to be gone after this year. You look at who knows what's going to happen with Larry Ogunjobi during the offseason. You look at Chris Wormley's injury. You look at Loudermilk, really looking just more like a depth player, at best right now. it's got to be in the trenches, in my opinion, from where I sit right here today. Now, obviously, things can change in a hurry and all. We'll see how many of their own, see if what they address. I would like to see them address the position during the draft. That seems to be where they've had their best, unless Javon Hargrave comes open or something like that. But I suppose, I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. You would think that the Eagles might have sights on getting him redone or something. But outside of, let's say, a Javon Hargrave, I would like to see this thing addressed during the draft. So I would go, interior defensive line right now.
I think that's going to be one of the more popular answers, and I agree with you, but I'll go the other way and say just left guard. This team has to run the ball. They're going to be built around running the ball for the next 4 or 5 years, you would guess, and I think just the frustration of Kevin Dawson, a talented player who makes plays, I thought played well against Carolina, one of his better games of the year, but I'm going left guard. I'm probably going day 2 on the draft. That's where I'm thinking right now, but again, there are so many ways to answer that, it's really hard to give an exact, concrete, confident answer. If you guys could like this live stream, would really appreciate that. More people that like it, more people that come in, see the channel, can hang out with us as you guys are. So you could drop a like. I know it's such a cliche YouTuber thing to say, but would really appreciate that. Let's see. Ross Swisher says, Alex and Dave, who would you rather be extended, Highsmith or Terrell? Well, Edmonds is a pending free agent, Highsmith under contract through 2023. I think there's certainly a case to be made for Edmonds to come back, to be re-signed. But I am certainly in the camp of let's try to get an extension done with Alex Highsmith next summer.
I would as well too. And look, I mean, you can have both if you really wanted it. Now, there's going to be a minimum that you're going to put on what you would want for a guy like Terrell Edmonds to be re-signed, and you have to go into that re-signing with the idea that you pay him just enough where you can go a different direction as far as a starter goes or something like that. Now, obviously, you got DeMonte Casey that you got to think about as well, too. If they can do it, I'd like to see them, try to re-sign both those guys on the cheap, right, if at all possible. And we'll see what price tags are. I mean, it might come down to one or the other. Who knows here? But once again, if it all depends on price with either one of those two. Now, with Highsmith, whether or not you get an extension done will obviously come down to price as well, too. And as Alex and I talked about on the podcast, what is that? What will that price be? I mean, you look at, I just pulled a list this afternoon, Alex, of there are 20 players in the NFL since the start of the 2021 season who have registered 17 or more sacks. 20 players on that list. There's 3 Steelers on that list. Javon Hargrave's also on that list, by the way. But three Steelers on that list. T.J. Watt, obviously, Alex Highsmith, and Cameron Hayward. So, I think they're – and look, I mean, he's a good kid. He's done everything. He's progressed the way that you want him to. If the two sides can meet at a realistic number with him, I think you try to get something done with Alex Highsmith this offseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, as you said, the price, the number is something to talk about. It's not 100% settled, but to the question, and I know the question was, who would you rather? But obviously, as you said, Dave, it doesn't have to be either or. You can do both, and that's certainly in the realm of possibility. $5 super chat from our friend Tim Chase. Happy holidays. Tim says, what's up with William Jackson III? Obviously, was placed on IR a week after acquiring him with that back injury. He is eligible to return. It has been for at least a week now, but Wednesday is kind of the day to check on those type of things. And so far, Jackson has not been designated to return and begin practicing. So with 3 weeks left and him probably needing 3 weeks to get back and get his legs under him, hasn't played since week 5, I'm guessing we're not going to see William Jackson ever play in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform.
Did they opened his window, didn't they?
No, not that I'm aware of, unless it happened today. They have not opened.
I can't remember if they opened his 21-day window or not. Maybe they didn't.
Yeah, I can check the chat, but I know there was a conversation about it, and Tomlin said, we'll evaluate. But to my recollection, they've never actually opened that window on Jackson practicing again.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to remember if they did or not. I guess they didn't with him. But whenever they do, they would have 21 days to obviously put him back on the 53-man roster. But I mean, we're talking now 3 weeks, 3 games left in the season. It would have to happen this week with him getting basically returning to practice, and then he'd have to get his legs up underneath him and go from there. So it's not looking good for him. I thought for sure I remember seeing something. We've had so many of these guys come back though from to have their window open. So I guess they didn't do it with him.
Mike Adesso, I don't believe you mentioned on the podcast, but how about Edmonds pancaking Icky? Wow, that was impressive. And an unrelated note, would love to lock him up to an affordable 3-year extension this offseason. Yeah, that play looked a lot cooler live than if you watched the All-22. Aquanu tripped over the left guard's leg, and so Edmonds, he pancaked him, but there's some context there in terms of the extension. I don't think it'd be 3 years even if they do re-sign Edmonds, but an extension of some sort, maybe 2 years, I think makes sense for him.
Possibly. I mean, has he done enough this year that you couldn't get away with another 1-year deal, sort of similar to what he did last year? I mean, there obviously would probably be some guaranteed money involved in it, more so this time around, I would think. So it would have to be a 2-year deal, some similar to the way they kind of treated Tyson Alualu. Probably not the same money, obviously, inflation and all like that and all, but it might be somewhere along the 2-year deal. But I mean, what's the max per year that you're looking to pay a guy like that? I mean, you've got two guys in Levi Wallace and Akella Witherspoon that you just this past offseason, you said those guys were worth $4 million per, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of those guys might need to go, and it probably ain't going to be Wallace, if you know what I'm saying. But
sure.
if you're saying those guys are worth $4 million, is Edmonds along the lines worth the same amount now, $3 to $4 million?
Yeah, it's a good conversation. Was obviously signed for ultra cheap late, right before the draft this past off season. I imagine his value will have gone up some. The reason why I say a 2-year deal is just because you don't want to keep going year to year and uncertain about some sort of long-term future. And with Wallace being a free agent after next year and Witherspoon, same if he's around that long, you kind of want to stagger those things a little bit. But, we'll see. It's not going to break the bank no matter what the terms of the deal are.
Here's the thing to think about as well, too. If you bring him back and, with the notion that this guy, you're welcome to compete for the job, starting job. What if he doesn't win it? Is he special teams material at his age? You would think he is, but he has been around a while now.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing special teams right now, even as a starting strong safety. I mean, there's a few guys have played more snaps in football over the last 5 years than Terrell Edmonds. So, the money, you could justify him being a backup or a sub-package type player, even if he doesn't become your starting strong safety.
I would think no more than $4 million, and that might be pushing it $4 million per.
Yeah, I think that probably sounds about right. So just a reminder, if you guys could like the stream, would really appreciate that. And also appreciate the $2 super chat from Todd Williams. I do not see any associated text there in terms of that super chat or anything surrounding it. If I see something from Todd, I will certainly get to that as soon as I can, but thank you so much. Mutated Genome says, hi, Alex and Dave. What are your expectations for Mark Robinson next season? What does he need to do to become a day one starter? It was good to see Robinson out there. I thought he played well in limited action. What are your thoughts, Dave?
I think it's way too early to tell right now.
Sure.
He played 7 snaps.
Yeah, not 4. Played 7.
Right. Played 7 snaps in that game against Carolina. That was his first official defensive side of the football action there. I mean, it's way too early to tell. I mean, obviously, you would hope that he does enough, next year during camp and shows enough during the preseason and all that, and we'll see how the off season shakes out and all with at the inside linebacker position. But at worst, you would hope he would be a guy that could be in the rotation to get some defensive snaps next year. I mean, it's way too early to sit here and say, well, this guy's played 7 snaps against Carolina. and whatever he played in the preseason, and go ahead and anoint him the starter next year. You can't do that. There's not enough tape on him.
Sure, I think next summer will be critically important to Mark Robinson. I think maybe a Robert Spillane role, the way Spillane's occupying that role this year, could be the thing for Robinson. Top back up, playing in some sub-package, run-heavy looks, 3-5, and things like that is kind of my thought with him. But Devin Bush, if he's a free agent and Spillane is restricted, I imagine he'll be back, but we'll have to see on that. Some lanes could open up. We'll see if Pittsburgh addresses things in the offseason. That's a question from Bruce Myers, who says, if Bush is not re-signed, does off-ball linebacker become top of the list in the draft? Maybe Trenton Simpson, if he's there where they pick. I think you still build this thing inside out. D-line before trenches is or D-line before inside linebacker is my thought.
And I think you got to be open. Look, they're not going to be able to fill. There's going to be a lot of needs on this team, folks. I mean, there is going to be a lot of needs, and they're not going to be able to fill all of them via the draft. They're just not. They're going to have to address some of this in free agency. So maybe inside linebacker is a position that you can put up high in free agency, right?
They've done it before. They're getting good at signing those guys.
Although a little bit higher quality, this time around. Maybe actually spend some. Although Miles Jack wasn't cheap,
Right.
But he's still got another year left on his deal, and you would think that he's done enough, to be back. But who's going to play alongside of him is a real question. So, here's my thoughts now on inside linebacker too. I mean, that's kind of a position, man. I think that can be found in the second and third rounds. I don't want to see this team go after another inside linebacker anytime soon in the first round. I don't think. And once again, this team has just got a lot of areas that they've got to address this year. So, maybe that's a position that you address in free agency.
Sure, it may very well be. I don't know what names are out there. I think one we'll talk about in a second. That's going to be a bit more pie in the sky. When I say they're getting good at it, I mean they're doing it a lot, not necessarily that they're hitting on those ones. Jack's been okay. I think he's played worse since the bye. He's been injured. And as Ross Swisher's pointing out, there is a lack of splash from both, really all the off-ball linebackers, and that's an issue there. You saw what the Ravens guys can do. They're more talented players, but you're lacking that splash for sure. Todd Williams had a question after that super chat. Says, what is our greatest position of need in the draft? That was similar to the first question that we asked and answered. We're both in agreement, trenches. Now you can really throw a dart and find needs, corner, inside linebacker, strong safety. What happens in terms of free agents, who stays, who goes, is going to dictate a lot. Who they add in free agency will also dictate a lot of what holes are there come draft time. So it's really hard to answer that now, knowing how much can and will change until April. But trenches is where this team has to build. They have to go inside out.
And look, they usually paint the numbers pretty good for you starting in March, right? So what they address in free agency, you can usually whittle this thing down to kind of the positions they might go in the draft. But I obviously have defensive line high on my list. Alex has offensive line. If they don't go defensive line, I do hope they go offensive line. I'll tell you that.
If they don't go O-line, I hope they go D-line.
Right. So, I think that's where Alex and I are at this time here. And I know everybody's going to say, boy, we need a shutdown corner and all like that. I mean, what good does it do you to have, to spend a first round pick on whatever cornerback is your favorite right now. If you don't let that kid travel, in other words, follow teams' other best receivers around. And if you don't have a pass rush better than what you have now, if you can't stop the run, to me, it doesn't make sense to build from the back of your defense moving forward here. And I kind of relate that to kind of what they did with the whole Najee Harris thing. No, I don't hate Najee Harris, but I would have fortified that line before I did anything. I really think the running back position is a fungible type position. Now, I don't think cornerback obviously is as fungible by any stretch of the imagination, but I would like to see them address up front, either defensive or offensive line, is from where I sit right now.
And I think that's the approach assistant GM Andy Weidel's going to take in terms of building this team. That's how they built it in Baltimore, how they built it in Philly, and I think that's how they're going to build things in Pittsburgh. Our friend Jason with a question. Good to hear from you, Jason. Happy holidays. Says, hello, Daleks. I admit it. I'm living in my fears. I'm very concerned about both Muth and number 8, dealing with multiple concussions so early in their careers. Talk me off the ledge, please. It's a concern, absolutely. I mean, Freiermuth has now had, I think, technically 3 in 2 years, and Pickett's had 2 this season. And I don't know what he had in college, but it's not where you want to be. Obviously, now each concussion's different, and a guy, they range on the spectrum of severity, and one guy suffers multiple concussions, and that can change his career, and one guy suffers them, and he's relatively okay. So it's a concern. You just trust the doctors are doing a good job. Pittsburgh has a good medical staff, and really not much you can do. Not much you can avoid that happening. I think Pickett changed his helmet to maybe try to decrease some of those things, but outside of the equipment type stuff, you go through the process, you get cleared, and you hope for the best.
Absolutely. I'm not going to pretend that I know more than the next person about concussions.
You are Dave Bryan, MD, though, right?
I'm a groin specialist.
Okay, yeah, I think Miles Jack is in to see you this week. All right, next question comes from Narcissist Bull. Do we sign Larry O next year? That's a great question. I don't know where I come in on that. I'm leaning towards no, but there's cases to be made. It depends on the week, because I thought he had a great game against Carolina, probably his best game of the season in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, but I think he's been plagued by some injuries. He's gotten older. How much is he going to cost? He got $8 million this year. It's probably the floor for any sort of long-term deal. I'm probably going no on Larry O.
Yeah, it depends on the price with him, and boy, he's going to be looking for another payday after missing out on that 3-year deal last year with the Bears that would have kind of set him really for the rest of his NFL career. Be careful is all I got to say, and I think there'll be plenty of people out there if he stays healthy the rest of the season, and especially if he plays like he did in the first half against Carolina. I think he's going to have suitors out there. So, just from where I sit right now, my guess would be is that he won't be back.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too, but I think that one is much more on the fence than some other names we'll talk about throughout. Steelers announcing, by the way, they will wear their block uniforms, I think with a patch as well for Franco Harris in this anniversary game. So that'll be pretty cool to see on what should be a chilly Christmas Eve. Question here from Brian Tolini. Better chance J.J. Watt joins TJ, or we re-sign Edmonds and add Tremaine Edmonds in free agency. Tremaine would look great in black and gold. I think both are probably pretty unlikely. I think it's more likely Tremaine, just because he fits what Pittsburgh looks for, what they like, the pedigree guy, the athlete, the bloodlines. Obviously Terrell and Trey Edmonds as well, both have been Steelers in their career. But I think Buffalo probably wants to hold on to that combination of Edmonds and Matt Milano.
Yeah, probably do. Has he been having to see? He's missed some time this year with injury, hasn't he?
Has he? That sounds right. I don't know the whole situation up there, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of. I don't think he's making some of the plays maybe that he was making previously. He's a big kid, man. You want to talk about what is he, 6? What does he go, like 6'3" or something?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, a great athlete. Came out, he was 21 years old coming out of college. I mean, and he's like 25 now, so really young.
Yeah, he's got some measurables on him for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a name that will be discussed just because of the tea leaves, the connections. But let's see if Buffalo.
He's 6'5". He can't be 6'5".
No.
That's what PFF has him listed. He's got to be more like 6'4" or something.
Maybe 6'4".
His looking at some of the stuff they have on him, his run defense hadn't been all that this year at times, and I think he has missed a handful of games in here this year.
Okay. Again, a name that I'm sure will come up. The first stage, though, is will Buffalo re-sign him? If he gets to free agency, then you can have a serious conversation about that, but that is the first hurdle to get through. Mike Adesso, how many more years do you see Hayward on the roster? Who's going to replace him as leader in the locker room and community? Are they even on the roster yet? Sherwood, like Clemson defensive tackle Brees, Cam Clone on and off the field. Yeah, with Hayward, who knows? He's still playing at a high level to me. I look at what Calais Campbell's doing in Baltimore at 36, still playing unbelievable football. So that's kind of the guide in terms of the best case scenario. Who's going to replace him as that leader? Yeah, that guy may not be there right now. TJ Watt, I think, is more of a quiet leader, but certainly grown. Alex Highsmith, I think, is ascending into that role. Beyond that, we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think Cam's got a couple more years left in him. I think at least one more past this year. I would think.
I think so too.
604 and a half for Tremaine Edmonds, 253 at the combine.
Unreal. Yeah, that's a Tomlin guy for sure. But will he get out of get out of free agency or to free agency is going to be the question there. Let's see. Orlando Brown would be nice, but dude will get 20 million plus. Yeah, I thought about Orlando Brown as a tackle. I don't think he's had a great year in Kansas City, so I don't know. Yeah, he wants to be a left tackle only, so that I don't think what Brown's going to be the answer.
Is my boy David with the Titans? Is he going to be a free agent?
He's a lineman?
No, linebacker.
Oh, Long, David Long. I believe
Yeah,
he is.
yeah.
Yes, I don't know for sure, but somebody gave me a.
He's the one that I thought the Steelers should have drafted over Devin Bush. Remember that conversation us having about him? I don't know if he's going to be. I can't remember if he's going to be a free agent or not. But look, once again, this team needs to go out of its norm. I mean, they obviously went out of their norm. They had high volume number of signings, free agent signings last year, right? But look at the back end of the list on some of those. Gunnar Olszewski and I don't know, go down the list there. A lot of those were a lot cheaper. They need to spend some money this offseason, and from a cap perspective, they should be able to finagle however they want to finagle because they can restructure Watt if they need to. We'll see if there's any cuts that wind up clearing a few million here or there or whatnot. But there is absolutely, if they want to turn this thing around in a hurry, in other words, have themselves a Super Bowl caliber team in 2023. Once again, they're not going to do it all through the draft. They're going to have to do it through free agency as well.
Agreed. Let me put you on the spot here, Dave, if you're ready for it. James Daniels, he signed, what was his average yearly value? 12 million?
10 something, wasn't it?
10? Was it lower? I couldn't remember if it was 10, if that's what I know Corfor got 10. But okay, so we'll call Daniels around 10. Will the Steelers sign a free agent that's worth more than 10 million per year or not? What do you think they'd do?
Yes, they have to.
You think so? Yeah, they have to. Okay.
I think they have to. I mean, everybody should be disappointed if they don't with the and obviously that won't be his cap charge,
Sure,
because, because of multi-year deal and all like that. But all that aside, it feels like they have to, man.
I think so too. It's hard to know who, and my answer could change. But where we sit today, this team will have a lot of cap space. I think they're going to be aggressive under Con and White of building this roster and their vision really for the first time after being hired so late in the process of the 2022 offseason. Question for you, Dave. AJC, how much salary cap will the Steelers have in the offseason?
Oh, man, we're not even hang tight with me here because this time of year, you're getting through the end of the year. I'm going to have a full cap update here right after the season ends overall. And look, a lot of stuff that you read on over the cap and stuff like that. You've got to build out what I like to do with my projections is I like to build out a mock rule of 51 first, right? And I like to use like second year salaries in there because that helps offset things throughout the offseason. So that gives you a good starting point there with having kind of a mock rule of 51. Now, obviously, they've already got, 30-something players under contract next year. And then you kind of move forward from there. And here's the thing. There's a report, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago that expected this, salary cap to be even higher than what they originally thought. So we're kind of waiting on a little bit firmer number on that. Is it going to be, people saying now that it's not going to be 220 million. It might be 225 million, might be 230 million. The way some of these people are talking here. So let's let these final 3 weeks of the season kind of get by us here. And find out how much rollover they're going to have from 2021, and I'll be able to paint you as for those of you that read the site and listen, I'll try to paint you as clear a picture as I can starting really, the week after the season starts, because that's when I start getting back into heavily tracking that almost on a daily basis in.
To the penny. That's what Dave will do.
Right.
To the penny, you will know what the cap situation looks like in projections. Obviously, won't know final numbers until the salary cap has actually been set for 2023. But short answer, they should have plenty of money to do basically anything they would like to do. They should be restricted the way they were for so many years.
And once again, you've got the ability to restructure, a guy like Watt if you wanted to,
Right.
and so they'll have the ability to do whatever they want to do. It's just to what degree measures do they want to go about about doing that. And there's another question. Is what are they going to do with Mitch Trubisky? If Mitch Trubisky stays, that's an $8 million salary on the books. If he goes, well, you obviously have to have a backup quarterback. Or can you bring in someone that's that you can work with for half that amount, or would you be re-spending that same $8 million on the same caliber player there? So that's something else to think about there. Which direction they're going to go with the backup quarterback, because that's one of the higher cap charges that this top 10 right now, I think, in cap charges that this team will have in 2023.
Maybe 2023 will be Jacoby Brissett's year to come to Pittsburgh. My hopes and dreams. Not that it was ever my dream, but just made a lot of sense based on the NC State connection between essentially the entire Steelers offensive staff. Randy,
we got to see, what's going to happen. We don't think William Jackson's going to be back. I had a 12.75 number there. You would think that's going to be off the books here fairly soon. I don't think they would restructure Deontay Johnson. He's not going to go anywhere. If you need be, you could restructure the contract of Minka as well too. So there's money to be had there. I mean, your top cap charges right now in 2023 are 29.3, a little more than 29.3 for TJ Watt, 22.25 for Cameron Hayward. Minka has an $18 million cap charge. Deontay has a 16.333. And then going on down the list here, Miles Jack, 11.25. Jaquan Okorafor, 13.03. James Daniels, 11.1. And then you get into that Mitch Trubisky range, I think, or range at 10.625 cap number there. So there'll be some decisions to be made. And what are you going to do with Keller Witherspoon? There's $4 million there.
Sure. And could you restructure Boz if you wanted to with his new deal? Is there money to move there?
I mean, he's got a base salary of, you're not going to free up much. He's got a base salary of $2.74 million, and he's got a roster bonus due of 1.3. So, technically you could take that $1.3 million roster bonus and $1.5 million of the base salary, and take say $2.8 million, turn that into a signing bonus, and then spread that out over the 4. You're not going to save much money that way.
All right, fair enough. But again, a lot of space, and be sure to follow Dave's recap in first look after the season ends. All right, back to the questions here. Have a ton of them. Randy Wagner, Mark Robinson looked pretty good yesterday, being aggressive and filling up the holes. Was it his first game, and where has he been all season? Third game, second in which he's played. First time he's gotten defensive snaps. It was the Bucs game, the Colts game he dressed for, but first snaps came against Carolina. Listen, he was a 7th-round rookie that played well, had a good summer, but was playing running back 2 years ago at Presbyterian or wherever he was at, Southeast Missouri. So this guy needed some time. It was a good showing, but it was a very specific package he was playing in, allowed him to play downhill. Actually, once the live stream ends, I found one negative play from Mark Robinson in coverage. I want to show, I think, him understanding nuances in coverage and being raw there, which is expected. One of the reasons why he wasn't playing much and had to work his way up the ladder. So, patience. I caution patience with Mark Robinson.
Absolutely. And, once again, 7th-round pick. You hope this thing turns into something, but and it was good to obviously see him out there running around and getting some defensive snaps for the first time, but there's just not enough tape there to analyze just yet. So, we'll see what's going to happen in these final 3 games. What happens if that groin of Miles Jack is better this week? People are going to be disappointed as all get out if you turn around on Saturday night and Mark Robinson's one of the 5 or 7 inactive players that they have.
Right, absolutely. And I'll have a video on Mark Robinson, though, in the morning that'll show some of the plays and a brief breakdown on that, because I knew people would want to get some inkling on him, but as Dave says, long ways to go. David O, our own David O, says, Dave and Alex, what current Steeler do you believe will be lost to free agency that you wish would be retained? I don't know if there's one name that comes to mind. And then some of the comments in the chat said that. Maybe Edmonds. I wouldn't be mad about that in terms of the cost to replace him versus the cost of just re-signing him, but Cam Sutton, I don't know if he will be lost, but if you lose him, he's not irreplaceable, but he does a lot for your defense.
I tell you what, what's the old Benny? I forget the comedian. The old this will show my age, and I know David O will probably know the.
Only 2.
Take my wife please, kind of thing. There's not many that I'm going to would lose a lot of sleep over if they were lost to unrestricted free agency. And man, there's a long list that this
There
team's
is.
going to have. Cameron Sutton's one guy that I think is just kind of head and shoulders above everybody else on this long list of unrestricted free agents that the Steelers are going to have. He's a guy that I think that you got to really try hard to re-sign him, because if you don't, what are you going to do?
Sure.
And it's not like, Cameron, you mentioned Cameron Sutton and people say, oh yeah, I know who, or think of him as a Pro Bowler, but I mean, he is the best that they really have in that secondary right now. And I just think they got to re-sign him. So I guess I'd be the most hurt if he walked. Now, obviously, price is everything. If someone's willing to overpay, then there's a line that you draw there. But he would be the only one that I would really question letting walk.
I do want to throw out one other name here, but before I do that, just one last call out to like the channel and like the video and subscribe as well. And you guys can see more videos, analysis, and the weekly live streams that Dave and I do. How about Zach Gentry, free agent? Not that he's irreplaceable, like Cam Sutton, but that big blocking tight end that's carved out a pretty niche and important role for this now run-heavy Steelers team.
Look, I mean, he has come a long way, right? I mean, he was a guy that we talked about before, I think before last season, right? Thought, this guy's kind of questionable. Is it, because he was obviously injured his first 2 years, I think, and just really didn't look much of a blocker at all. I'm not losing sleep over him, but there is obviously, he would have to be replaced in some way, shape, or form, because Connor Hayward's not that guy to do the things that they asked Zach Gentry is. So yeah, you could quite honestly, you could, if you put a list as far as what the Steelers' priority should be, it's probably Cam Sutton's obviously one, maybe Gentry's 2A or 2B, depending on what you think of Casey or Edmonds or something along those lines there. So, but look, he is not Matt Spaeth, right?
No, he's not. But you'd have to find a guy like him, because they like the value of that. It's not a 6 offensive lineman, so you can do some pass game stuff with him. It's not this giant red flashing light of, hey, we're either going max protect and throwing it deep, or we're going to run the ball like you would with a 6 offensive lineman. But it's still that big body that can defend some of these 4-3 teams, multiple defenses. That's becoming more and more common. You see that in the Bengals, and that's important to have.
Here's the thing with him. I mean, or what I was talking about with Matt Spaeth. I know that's a dirty word sometimes to say, Matt Spaeth, but man, that guy doesn't get enough credit for the kind of blocker he was. Throughout his career and all. And this team, and it kind of feel, will Pat Freiermuth get? How much better will Pat Freiermuth get as an end of the line blocker?
Mm-hmm.
And how much more ceiling does Zach Gentry have? Look, I'm not saying they shouldn't re-sign him, obviously, but there is a certain price on that.
Sure, and Jesse James, remember when he got overpaid by Detroit, and you just lose him because you just can't afford him. But you'll also miss Grillen and Chillen if Gentry's gone, and Pat Fryermuth's BFF, and you can't have those two apart.
Those two are peas in a pod, right? I mean, they're freaking frack, really. Yeah. It's hard to imagine, as we sit here with 3 games left, those two not being on the roster together next season.
Agreed. I think the stat on Matt Spaeth, maybe someone can check me. I think he had more catches his final year at Minnesota than he had his entire NFL career, which spanned like 11 years, I want to say. Because he won the John Mackey Award in his last year for the top tight end in college football, which is a crazy thing for a guy that was functionally an offensive lineman in the NFL.
Right.
I refreshed the chat and I lost some of the questions, so I apologize. I saw there was a comment from Frank V, and I was itching to get to it. I don't have it to read verbatim, but he said that David Tepper threw the game yesterday, the Panthers owner, to do his old buddy Art Rooney a favor. And so he believes in the conspiracy, which is going around for what happened in the Washington game. I don't believe any of that stuff, but not a good look for the refs overall. But I promise you, David Tepper not throwing a game, which Carolina needed to stay in this playoff race.
I'm not buying it.
John Horvat, hey, Alex and Dave, what do you think the bigger need or bigger weakness is? I guess that's also the biggest need, the O-line or the D-line. Again, it's such a collective. It's, you want to talk about specific people and positions. To me, left guard's a big need. That's kind of the one spot on the O-line I would categorize as a big need. D-line, there's probably more there, nose tackle, and things like that. So I think they're both pretty important.
Yeah, and we hit a lot on that earlier in the show. So rewind a little bit back in there, and we had a good discussion about trenches.
Run by you again had a comment that I can't get back to in access, but I think was talking about Jalen Carter looking good but not being consistent enough. And I think he had a comment about what was his name, Robert Kimdiche? I forgot how you say the guy's name, but a concern there that he's a bit more bark than bite, I guess.
There was something floating around, I think last week about character or something. I don't know. Look, I mean, once again, we have Jonathan Heitritter now on staff that does a lot of the leg work during the Steelers season when it comes to draft. Alex and I are so busy on the site that we have to stick with Steelers in season stuff until the end of the season. Now, obviously, we both watch college football on Saturdays and have a general good idea, but we have not scratched the surface as going deep on any of these players yet. So it's just not what we do. It's not what we've done. We usually get it all started with the Senior Bowl and all like that. So for me to sit here and specifically comment on totality thoughts on one player, I would be doing all of you an injustice right now if I did that, because I've got so much. I barely have scratched the surface on several of these guys. I know them by name. I know some clips of them, but I haven't gone deep enough on them.
Yeah, same here, but we'll be doing that more postseason, and Jonathan's doing a great job with his bowl previews you can check out. There's one already set for the morning. There was one going up earlier today that talks about some of the notable prospects come bowl season. Let's see. Next question comes from, let me scroll back up. Where was it at? Narcissistful says, I think we should try to sign Roquan Smith. Your thoughts? I'm betting Baltimore feels the same. I don't think they're going to send that to Chicago and let Smith, who's played great for them, walk. So if he hits free agency, have at it. It's like that Tremaine Edmonds conversation, but I'm guessing he'll be a Raven for a long time.
I feel like he's going to be as well.
Mike Adesso says, offseason plan in 3 steps. Give the bag to Daron Payne out of Washington, the D tackle, and inside linebacker David Long Jr. in Tennessee. Bring back Bud as the number 3 outside linebacker on a cheaper deal. Your thoughts, Dave? What are your thoughts? I'm sure you love the David Long. What do you think about Payne and a reunion with Bud Dupree?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to dive a little bit deeper into Payne to see what's going on there. As far as Bud Dupree as the 3, look, they need some youth in there. Yeah. No offense to Bud Dupree, but he has had a few more injuries since he's left Pittsburgh, and also your number 3 outside linebacker is probably going to have to play special teams at least to start with, and that ain't Bud Dupree right now. So there's several reasons to think that they won't go an outside linebacker with age on him, such as Bud Dupree for many reasons. The best way for them to attack this is through the draft, plain and simple. There, second, third, 4th rounder, something along those lines. Go try to find the next Alex Highsmith out there. The funny thing thinking about Alex Highsmith today, Alex, remember, it was ahead of it was the East-West Shrine game, wasn't it? And Tom Mead, our own Tom Mead, wrote up, I don't know, what was it, 8 players or 10 players to watch that the Steelers might be interested in the East-West Shrine game. And Alex Highsmith was on that list. And moving forward to that, remember that he kind of got lost in the shuffle with kind of how they were using him on that defensive line. They were trying to make him kind of like a 5 tech or a 3 tech or something.
Right. He was a base end before his last year. Right.
But the Steelers were able to do a good job scouting and see through it that, hey, this guy can stand, this guy has edge potential there. So that's kind of maybe what they need to look at this year. Is there this guy out there that's going to kind of maybe get lost in the shuffle, like an Alex Highsmith, third, that you spend a 3rd round draft pick and develop and be your depth guy? I think that's the way that you go there.
On screen now, number 95. Alex Highsmith pulled up the Tom Mead article from January 2020. 8 players to watch for. Highsmith on that list with the comments that Dabo Sweeney had about that great game that Highsmith had against that Clemson squad. And so that was a great call by Tom and turned out to be 100% accurate.
Was that the Shrine Bowl?
Yep, Shrine Bowl. Yep, on screen.
Okay.
Yep, that was the Shrine game, I guess. It's not the Shrine Bowl.
It was it used to be the East-West Shrine game forever, and now obviously it's out here in Vegas, and they call it the East-West Shrine, or the East-West Shrine Bowl, I guess now.
Marketing people, man. You gotta, sometimes these marketing people, they gotta tweak things. All right, back to the questions and comments. Almost 100 people here in the chat, so appreciate that. Hopefully we can hit triple digits before we wrap up. John Horvat says, coming into the draft, Connor Hayward was supposed to be a fullback tight end. Type of guy. We haven't seen him with a carry yet. Do you think there's ever plans to give him carries? No, I don't think so. Outside of emergency situations or maybe some sort of weird jet sweep play. Sometimes that happens with tight ends. But I think he's a tight end, more of the athlete, more of that, he's just not been used as a running back. And so I think the plan is to use him in his current role.
Yeah, and, he's not going to be, an end-of-the-line guy. He's going to be kind of the role that he has had this year, and probably not much more than that.
Right. I think he'll be a chess piece used with his versatility and overall athleticism. Hopefully his pass-catching ability is used more than some of the core split flow blocking he's done. But
they're trying to use him in a split flow.
It doesn't work well. When he cuts, it's okay, but not great. Also on Tom's shrine list here, Calvin Throckmorton, still one of the best names ever. He's where's Throckmorton at? He's around. Pittsburgh just saw him, didn't they? Baltimore? Not Baltimore.
He was with someone that they just saw. Saints, wasn't it?
Saints. That's what it was, because they had those injuries there to their center or guard with Ruiz. Okay, there it is. So there's Throckmorton on that list. Anyway, that's useless.
Who else is on that list?
I actually, those were kind of the only two names. Guys that I hadn't heard of. I'll scroll through it. This guy, is he in Detroit? McKelvin Agam? Is he in Detroit?
Yeah, I remember the name. I don't remember where he's at right now. If he is at.
How about Isaiah Buggs in Detroit doing some big things up there, becoming a leader? Good for him. Deshaun Dixon, a guard from San Diego State, no idea. Miles Dorn, North Carolina. There was Highsmith. Patrick Nelson from SMU. Aaron Parker, Rhode Island. He was briefly in the league, I can remember. And then Throckmorton and this tight end. Was Dominic Wood-Anderson a Steeler for like 2 seconds? Was he a rookie tryout guy? I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway. Getting back here, Cody says, do you think making a run out at Elton Jenkins would be smart since this tackle class is pretty lackluster? Again, I hate to keep answering these the same way, but I assume the Packers are going to want to keep that guy. He's been their best lineman. He's been extremely versatile, played everything for him. Is Aaron Rodgers going to want to see that guy go? I doubt it. So if he's available, sure, but getting to that point is 90% of the battle.
It feels if there's a new tackle that's going to come to town, it's going to be through the draft.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Now I'm such a hate. Was Dominic Wood-Anderson ever a Steeler as a tryout guy? I want to say he was, but I could be 100% wrong about that. So now I have to look that up. That's going to bug the heck out of me. Where did Wood-Anderson go? Does not look like Pittsburgh. Seattle. Okay, maybe I'm making stuff up here. Anyway.
Didn't ring a bell with me.
All right, getting back here on track, Steelers Dose of Reality. Alex, can you explain about our effective cap and what is not in it yet? I'm not 100% sure on what's being asked there. That's a question for Dave, though. The effective cap and what is not in their effective cap.
Well, look, when you talk about effective cap space, you're talking about look, the NFL calendar, you got to look at it in several different stages here. Obviously, you have the off season before the new league year starts, which is in March. During the off season, you obviously build your roster out to 90, and you really can do whatever you want. I mean, it works off of a Rule 51, but you don't have to be cap compliant with that rule of 51 until the new league year starts. So that's line in the sand, number one there. Once you get past that, you have to think about effective cap space, meaning, okay, well, we've got this draft class coming in. It's going to account for this much of money. You got to account for a 52nd and 53rd player once the rule of 51 goes away on week 1 of the season. So that's more money that you have to account for there. you have to kind of project how much cap space is the team going to want to have free once the season starts. And I get a lot of pushback from this every year, and I've been right, Alex? I mean, it's been around $8 or $9 million.
Sure.
You say, oh, they won't want to. They're not going to want to have that much cap space. And lo and behold, the last 2 seasons, it's been that's been the deal with that. So you have to prepare for, okay, they're going to want to. You might as well count that as a $9 million cap charge, because that's how much they're going to want to go into the season with. And then you're going to have to project, okay, how many million is going to be on IR counting against your cap come week 1 of the season. A couple, 2 or 3 million, you got a budget there. So you move this thing along in stages. And so, like, when I do an update, say, I don't know, let's say in March, or no, let's say May, I'm going to have, look, this is where they're at now, but you better remember that this is coming down the pike here. It might not be right away, but it's going to have to be accounted for sooner or later. And that's when you get into current, actual, in the moment cap space versus effective cap space.
Okay. Gotcha. So still a lot to uncover and project out, right, as we go forward, heading into the new league year. Okay.
Tons, yeah. I mean, it's the same charges every year, but you have to, I mean, not the same charges, but it's the same categories that you're trying to project every year. But there is a level of projection, knowing that this is coming, that you got to be able to afford it. Yeah, you're $9 million. Let's say you're $4 million under the cap in May. Well, you got a $9 million in cap space you got to account for come week 1 of the season. So that's why you have real time versus effective cap space. So people will know, okay, well, this is where we are now, but this is where we're going, and we got to be able to account for that at some point.
About 10 minutes left, a couple of super chats, and I want to try to get through as many questions as possible. $5 super chat from Tim Chase says, what will Leal's position be? Reminds me of when we couldn't figure out Mike Rabel. Yeah, I wrestle with that. To me, he's not really a consistent, 3 down front defensive lineman. He's an interior sub-package pass rusher and nickel and dime. I think he's really should become an edge guy. Maybe play that hybrid role. I think using him in just one way, especially if that is an interior.
Kind of a Leo role or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say like Bruce Irvin, but just I think edge guy.
Kind of an elephant package guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, that kind of goes back to what Seattle's done with Irvin and guys over the years. But I guess my point is to make him like a Cam Hayward or a Tuitt or an Ogunjobi, where he's a consistent, in your base defense, he's playing 4 eyes, taking on double teams. That's not going to be how Leal succeeds. I think if you try to use him there consistently, not going to get good results. I think he actually is kind of more of a situational sub-package guy, and I think he could have some value as that big edge that's going to be tough for tight ends to handle.
How much weight do you reckon he could drop?
Well, again, I mean, he was like 270 at A&M last year. Pittsburgh drafts him. He got his weight up. Do you think he wanted to be at 295, 300? I don't think he doesn't look like he's 300 pounds right now. I think he's probably dropped again to play some of that edge stuff. I think he plays 270 is probably a good weight for him. That's
all right. Good. That would be an interesting question for this team right after they wouldn't answer it probably, but because it is you hear these suggestions all the time. Well, they should turn this guy into this position. That this is a legitimate question when it comes to this guy, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a little positionless. That was the knock on him coming out, and I still think there's an issue. There's some value in there because he's a good athlete, but putting him in the one box, regardless of what that box is not going to be good for him. $5 super chat from Jay Will. Should they consider signing Andre Dillard from the Eagles to give competition a tackle? This lets a first-round focus be on D-line or corner. Dillard's going to be a name. He's going to likely be a free agent from Philadelphia. My artist left tackle there. I'd rather either go big and get a clear replacement for Moore or get a clear backup behind Moore. In between, it's a little tricky of a line to walk.
Right. I still think that if they bring a tackle in, that I really think it's going to be via the draft if they do.
Sure.
To want one to start,
I think it could be a veteran cheap guy, but in terms of an actual option, I'm with you. I think the draft. Let's see. There was a comment from Randy Wagner. Where were you guys during the Immaculate Reception? He watched it at his cousin's house in Monaco, PA, but the game wasn't televised. I was not a person for about 20 years. Dave, where were you in 72?
I was in Pensacola, and I was like, four and a half?
All right, so neither of us have good recollections of the Immaculate Reception, I take it.
All right.
All right, there you go.
I mean, obviously, growing up, I mean, I around 4 or so was when, I started kind of rooting against my dad's Dallas Cowboys and all, and became a, Steelers fan at that time. But I mean, at 4, you don't have a, recollection of things like that. Now, obviously, once, you just get into 6, 7, 8 years old, and that's your team. It goes without saying that, that history at that time, which was recent history, back when the Earth was cooling, you obviously knew about. So I mean, I've obviously known about the Immaculate Reception since way before I was 10 years old. But as far as having recollection about the actual December 23rd, 1972, no.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. I saw a comment from our buddy Russ Openstein. Says, in late, what's up, Alex, Dave, and chat? Good to have you here, Russ, and happy holidays to you. Hopefully you're feeling okay. Let's see. Russ Wisher asking if it's mental for Harvin. Hey, Harvin has been better. It's not been, I think, ideal or where it needs to be, but he has been better this year compared to last. It's hard to know for sure. I think mental is an easy thing to look towards, and that's certainly maybe even more of a factor for specialists. I think it's just about, to be a good specialist, you have to have a really strong and consistent technique. Just that repeatable stroke, you have to be dialed in every single time, and that can be tough to do. It's not like a tackle who gets next rep, next play to go make their correct their mistake, fix their error. With punters and kickers and snappers, you get a couple chances a game. You better be on the money every single time, and that can be tough to do. So I don't know. That's kind of my thought, though.
They need to bring somebody in during the offseason to push him.
I think their intent was this summer to not have somebody push him, to try to give him more confidence. So I wonder, but at some point you can sit there and say, well, we have to eventually bring in competition for you. Mm-hmm. But I think this summer, because they only had one punter for large portions of this year. So I think that was them trying to give that vote of confidence to Harvin.
He needs competition. They need somebody they can turn to.
Couple more questions here. Should we go tackle in the first and use the Chicago pick to get a corner, or vice versa? In my opinion, we need immediate talent in both, but we might not get it with this capital. That's some great 1-0-3. It's hard to say. It's hard to talk about those things in a vacuum before free agency without seeing names on the board and in the whole class as a whole. So it's hard to really sit there and strongly feel they have to do one over the other. We agree the trenches, it has to be priority, but again, answering those things in broad terms is difficult to do.
A lot of you probably ain't going to like it either. This team somehow finds a way to win these final 3 games.
Right.
They're going to be picking like 18th or 19th or something like that in the first round. And a lot of those premier tackles go off the board way before then.
Yep, 100%. And so that happened with Najee, right? Najee was 24th overall, and the pick right before him was Christian Darrisaw at 23, that last good tackle, and they went Harris instead. Todd says, not a single target for Muth. Why? I'm not concerned. He ran 17 routes. It was a run-heavy game. He had that foot injury. They threw the ball outside quite a bit. Deontay was the guy yesterday. In this offense, it rarely are 2 guys going to have big individual games. Usually it's one guy having the big game, other guys in far smaller roles, and Freiermuth has generally been in that bigger role, and yesterday just did not.
And he missed a lot. He missed practice, at least 2 days, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, Wednesday and Thursday.
Last week. So, I mean, not that that's huge, but I mean, that foot was obviously not 100% for him. And they, like you said, look, the onus was on, making sure to try to run the football. And as Alex said, Deontay Johnson, it was in the plan, or it became in the plan to get him the football there. So I'm not too overly concerned about it. You just want him to get healthy right now.
Yeah, when you're not practicing early in the week and the game plan's being installed and there's some uncertainty about how much you're going to play, then you're probably not going to be involved a ton. And again, the dude ran 17 rounds. They ran the ball 45 times. Do the math there. Daniel, how can Witherspoon be out for so long as he did not injure his ACL, MCL? This dude is a history. I don't know. This dude is a history. I don't know if it has a history or what that's supposed to be with the hamstring. Well, hamstrings can be tricky, man. You pull those things and Eventually, they had to clear a spot, so it's a little bit strange, but the hamstrings can take you a long time to get back from.
There's no way I bring him back at $4 million. He's going to have to be a cut,
and probably not pay cut. You're thinking just straight up cut.
I'm thinking straight out cut.
You probably want to do that. You would probably want to re-sign Cam Sutton before you cut Witherspoon. Like as Cam signing his contract, you're releasing Witherspoon. Would probably be the process there, just in case. Let us see. David O with some numbers on Matt Spaeth. 55 career NFL receptions, 47 his last year at Minnesota, only 42 with Pittsburgh. So he had more in Minnesota his last year than his entire Steelers stint. There's some Chicago time in there. So there you go. What's changed on the offense since the bye week that's allowed the run game to work so much better? Is there a secret? I don't think it's a secret, Dave.
No, I think just continuity, them playing together more. And look, take this however you will. You know, the Panthers front's okay, but they have been run on this year. You know, I mean, the last couple of games in general. I mean, look, you do your research on this year as well too. How many teams have had all 5 offensive linemen start every game?
Is Pittsburgh the only one? I know there was a continuity thing. They were like the second best continuity O-line. I don't know if the first place team. I assume they probably had all their starters playing though.
I mean, look, you get those guys, getting that many amount of snaps together. You would hope they'd get better, right?
Sure, a young group.
And look at in this game against the Panthers, I think you kind of hit on it or have a video coming or whatever. What left side of that line? Well, that was your terrible take today.
Yeah, Josh Carney had a film room on it though.
Right, left side of that line played pretty damn good. Might have been the best combined game of those two of Dan Moore and Kevin Dotson this season.
I'm with you 100%. Couple more, Jabari Wilson. Do you feel any better or the same about Trubisky than you were earlier in the year coming off this game? It was a good game.
He is what he is.
Yeah, I was just saying. What do you say? Tiger doesn't change his stripes?
Yeah, the Tiger doesn't change his stripe. He is who he is, and that's who he is, and that's what he's going to be. Yeah. The rest of the way. If there's been anything that's been a real positive development, I guess overall with Mitch, is his deep ball completion rate has gone up a little bit over what it has been for his career. So that if there's a positive, it's that he's completing at a slightly higher rate statistically on passes more than 20 yards down the field than he has been for his career.
Yeah, but it's only been a marginal improvement, right? I think.
Right.
And it helps when George Pickens is catching those passes.
Sure.
Makes you look a little bit better as your quarterback. Ross Wisher razzing me a bit about Isaiah Buggs. Yeah, I don't think Buggs has been putting up huge numbers, but he's playing. I think he's playing, I guess, reasonably well and has become a leader for that Detroit team that's trying to build a culture under Dan Campbell. And so for as bad as Buggs looked in Pittsburgh, just a mess mentally, seemed to be, to me, a little self-absorbed. Always had that big 96 chain, even though he was the backup on the sideline. Just didn't love the look there. I think kudos to him for finding a home in Detroit. Seems to be going better there than it is in Pittsburgh, at least. Question from Narcissistful. Why didn't the Steelers know about William Jackson's back before they traded for him? They knew about it. They just cleared him, and they realized that's probably a mistake. And I bet you that's why Ola didn't get signed. They said, we're not dealing with necks and backs again. We are not. We've been down that road once before. We're not going to do that twice. Ola apparently worked out for the Jags today, so can't be that hurt, I guess. Let's see. We have time for anything else. Let me just check here quickly. And thank you guys for being here and hanging out with Dave and I.
Tigers versus Rams tonight. Aaron Rodgers versus Baker Mayfield, just like we all thought it would be at the start of the season, right?
Exactly. There was a comment, I can't find it, about Kevin Colbert making a mistake by basically shoehorning in a quarterback because he wanted to leave his team with a franchise quarterback, and that was a big reason why they went Pickett. I think he certainly had that feeling that he wanted to get a quarterback as he left. My frustration is, and I know it's all spilt milk, decision's been made, I just didn't love that he was the GM of this team through free agency and through the draft. To me, and we were one of the few people making that point. Most people were okay with that. I think, him retiring, you leave in January, let the new regime take over to start that offseason, especially in a critical offseason like that as you're building the future, looking for a quarterback. Let that decision be in the hands of the new GM immediately as opposed to them inheriting that. I didn't love that. I think Pittsburgh is paying some sort of cost and price for that now.
Yeah, look, we had a lot of conversations about that, Alex. Why stick around that long when you're not going, you're buying the groceries there, and somebody else has got to eat it now.
Right. And I understand, that was their process, and Omar Collins in-house, and he was obviously working with Colbert, but no other team does that. Everyone said, look what the Ravens did. The Ravens did not. They made their change in January when they went from Newsom to DaCosta. The Packers did the same when Ted Thompson stepped down. He did that in January right after the season ended, before an offseason began. The only time that's ever happened in terms of that mid-season GM change is usually for bad reasons, like when Mike McCagnon got fired by the Jets, and Adam Gase basically took over, and it was a whole big mess with Le'Veon's contract and things like that. So, again, spilt milk, new offseason for Con and Weidl, but I did not love that process then, and I do not love it now. All right, that's going to wrap up today's stream. Appreciate you guys being here. Great turnout, and hopefully next time we talk, we're still talking about the chance for playoffs, although we'll see how that looks. But hopefully you guys have a great Christmas, great holiday season, and Dave, as always, thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays, and peace and love.
All right, you can catch an archive version of this on the site here in just a little bit, which I have to get a draft ready for, so I will do that after this ends, and we'll talk to you guys in a couple weeks. Appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon.